Let's move on to Mosaic AI. So this is where all the data inside Mosaic becomes accessible just in plain English. So you don't so much need to know column names or filters. You don't need to kind of manually search through, thousands of historical observations. You simply just ask the question. So it's kind of like ChatGPT, but for Mosaic. So the difference, I guess, is that, Mosaic isn't pulling bits and pieces from the internet. It's interrogating the financial data behind in the database and returning all the stats and distributions and context behind whatever question you ask. So obviously got a few examples here, but you can ask, what happens when the Oz 200 gaps up strongly, or how does the S&P behave after two strong rallies, things like that. So, obviously instead of manually building those filters yourself, Mosaic AI does the heavy lifting and then returns the historical evidence. So if you can ask a question in plain English, Mosaic AI will translate that into a historical market study for you. So let's just try one here. So obviously I've got 5 prompts here across the 5 products that you can kind of test out. But what it'll do is it's just thinking away there. It'll come back with some stats. So you've kind of got this, just quick overview, hit rate, etc. You can break it down into the individual occurrences. The pills are also editable here, so that it's based on what you've asked. It's kind of interpreted which filter and output you're looking for. A bit of analysis, a chart that will show you all of that. What else? Build from this, so you can export as a PDF or a JPEG the analysis. You can build from this, so you can open up the setup in Data Lab, save it to your setup, track it as an alert, or share it to the collective as you find interesting setups and high probability setups. You can also export the table if you want to have a play around in Excel or a spreadsheet or something like that. Recent chats will be saved over here as well. You can also pin columns when you start a new chat. If there's anything that you want to pin to keep it throughout the thread, you can pin specific columns there. What else have we got here? So all of these are obviously backwards looking, okay? So they're looking at the historical data, what's already happened given a specific condition. You can also ask Mosaic AI to look forward as well. So this is what we call a look ahead question. So instead of just describing the setup, you kind of ask, what tends to happen afterwards over the next several days or a month or whatever. So as an example, I'm going to ask, what happens when the US 500 gaps down more than 30 points over the next 3 days? Calculate from the open price. So what I'm doing here is on those Mondays that we've come across a lot recently where market just gaps down significantly, I want to know, and we know it in advance most of the time over the weekend when you look at the weekend markets, I want to know how to trade that, or what happens the next few days generally when that occurs. So this is called the look ahead. You'll see it's a little bit different. It's kind of it tells you the path, so the highest point reached, the lowest point reached in that next 3 days after that event, the net move, where it's based. So you could change this to looking at starting the day after that move or something like that, or end of Asia session, and then how many trading days are you looking at. So you can see here there's been 15 gap downs of more than 30 points, bit of an overview there, and then all the lowest level reached in the next 3 days, highest level, and net. So as you can see here, this is an interesting one. because we've got 15 occurrences. You can see that 13 of them, if you went long, if you just set a long limit order on that gap down, you'd be in profit 3 days later. So that's interesting. And I'm sure if you did a bit more digging here, you'd see that the points to highs outnumber the points to lows pretty significantly. Again, 14 out of 15 occurrences rally at least 50 points. So again, that's a potential trade there. Also tells you the day that it reached the highest point, the day that it reached the lowest point. So again, here you can see that the vast majority are on day 0, which means on that day of the gap down. So that just helps you frame your trading plan around that. As I said, you can also build and export. The last thing I'll mention is the lens feature. So this is just a faster, kind of more visual way to explore session history. So you pick a session, add one or more conditions, and you can instantly see how similar sessions have played out across the years of market history. So same historical evidence as Mosaic AI gives you, just in a really quick visual kind of format. So you could say CPI day when I don't know, S&P prior day, so -15, and it'll show you 92% closed above the open, median session move 40 points. So this is a little pet trade of mine, but it just gives you a really quick visual interface to kind of quickly test different hypotheses. So that's it. So Mosaic AI, basically the fastest way to access everything on the platform. So if you really don't want to learn every single column and where everything lives, you can just start with questions there and go from there. So that's what AI has been built for.